Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today to talk about Cayosoft's comprehensive group management solution. I'm McKenna. I work alongside the Microsoft experts here at Cayosoft. Just a couple housekeeping items to go over before we jump into the presentation. First off, you'll notice your microphones are muted to ensure everyone has the optimal listening experience, but we do encourage you to ask any questions you may have. So depending on how you join today, whether in browser or through the app, you'll see a question or chat section on your meeting dashboard. Feel free to drop your questions in there, and we'll do our best to answer them throughout the presentation. If we run short on time today, we'll reach out with you directly to follow up. At the end of the presentation, we'll also be providing quick links for contact. So if you have any additional questions, you'll have the information there to follow up. While you're in your meeting dashboard, be sure to check out the handout section for some additional resources you can download and share with your team. With us today, we have one of our system engineers here at Cayosoft, Brian Perilla, to walk you through our solutions. But before we get started, if everyone could take a quick moment to follow us on social media. You'll see on the screen here a QR code for each of your favorite social networks. With your phone's camera, you can actually scan that code and it will take you directly to our social page. From there, you can follow or subscribe to stay up to date with our most recent news and industry information. Now that we've got all that taken care of, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Brian. Brian, take it away.
All right, thanks, McKenna. So what I'm going to do today is go through just a few examples of using Cayosoft Administrator and a little bit of Guardian as well to show how we can manage hybrid groups. So I'm going to lose the slides here and jump right to the actual demo. And before I start clicking a bunch of buttons, I'm going to just explain a little bit about what the product is all about. So the whole purpose is for managing your hybrid environment. So your on-premise Active Directory, your on-premise Exchange, as well as the associated Office 365 environment, that Azure AD, and the online Exchange, including the licensing. So the Office 365 or the Microsoft 365 licensing. So all the normal things that you might do with Active Directory users and computers, or the Exchange Admin Center, both on-premise and Exchange Online, as well as the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, including the license management. So all those various tools, you don't have to jump around between all those multiple separate tools. So from one single place, this web interface, and I'm going to start driving here in a moment, this web interface, we can manage all of those things. So as an example, I'm going to start by looking at some users. By the way, we can look at groups as well. So, and I'm going to talk mostly about groups today since that's the focus of this particular demo. But when I look at some groups, for example, you notice I have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different office locations for these groups. If I go look at users, I'll find a bunch of users in here as well, but I'm going to create a brand new user just as a starting point. And then, like I mentioned, I'm going to focus most of this on groups today, but let's say this guy will be George Jetson. Good enough. You'll notice the rest of the naming information is pre-built for me. So the full name, display name, UPN, SAM account name, all that's pre-built based on my rules. And then at the same time, I have the option to decide if this account is supposed to have a mailbox. So he could have an on-premise mailbox. By the way, all these buttons are configurable. So if you don't ever want to create any more on-premise mailboxes like me, then you can make this button disappear. You can make this one the default if you wanted. You could make this one the default, and I'm going to actually make this guy a hybrid user. So he's going to have a remote mailbox. You'll notice as soon as I choose remote, then I have some options for licensing. So if I choose license options, I can assign any licensing I want, including any of the sub items, you know, all the normal license assignment that you might do. In fact, you notice I also have some defaults already preset. So that's just my configuration in my particular environment. I could change these around and give them something else. I also have a different option here where I can assign by profile. So a license profile is really just a pre-configured set of combination of those checkboxes. So in this case, I might want to assign a standard license for this user. And if I look at that now, you'll see it includes just these two items. So I don't have to remember exactly which checkboxes go to which users. If I use a profile that has that set of checkboxes predefined for me, I can just select that and run with it. On the next screen of creating a user, I have a few more options, nothing too earth-shattering here, just some standard options for how you might want to create the user. And then most importantly is all of the attribute data. So we can assign whatever it is we want to assign for attributes. You'll notice I have some data entry controls. So for example, in this case, I have a drop-down list and it's not editable. I can pick from the list and that's it. I can also have the option to where I can allow additional data entry. So for example, I have a pick list here as well, but this guy's in a new location. So I'm going to add a new location. And of course, it would help if I could actually type. Let's try that again. And so now I've allowed them to add a new location and I just type that in and I can fill in the rest of this however I like. I can give him an employee ID, the employee type, maybe he's going to be a contractor. And then I have another attribute here. I just made up the name for this one, billing code. This actually maps to extension attribute 15 in my case. That's just how I configured it in my particular environment. I'm going to give him a value and then go create that hybrid account. So this is going to do all of the work for me in all those places. So it's going to create the on-premise Active Directory user account. It's going to create the online, the Azure account in Azure AD for Office 365. It's going to enable the remote mailbox for that account. So that'll be configured in AD. So it shows up, as a proper remote mailbox in your online exchange, as well as, as your on-premise exchange, as well as your online exchange. And it's going to also assign that licensing. So all of that will be taken care of and that'll complete in, maybe 15 seconds or so. And then what I could do from there, by the way, you see that completed. So I got the little green bubble that tells me that completed. I can see all the details for everything that happened. And then I can go back and review and edit that later. In fact, I'm going to make a change here while we're at it. Let's go ahead. Since we're talking about some group related stuff today, I'm going to look at George and I'm going to add him to a group. And I have a group that's called, you notice he's in these 4 groups right now. By the way, you notice he's in the 3 marketing groups. That just happened automatically. I'm going to add him to, not George, I'm going to add him to a do not change group. So there we go. You see I have a group called do not change membership. I'm going to add him to that. And we'll come back to that a little bit. But the idea is now that's it. That's all there is to it. I've just created a hybrid user and I didn't have to jump around a whole bunch of separate places to get that user provisioned. But more importantly is I can delegate this task to various people and I can limit the abilities of those various people. So you can create boundaries. So we call those administrative units. You notice here over on the left, I've got all these different nodes. We call them administrative units, admin units. So I've got one for accounting, engineering, facilities, finance. And you notice this by department in my case. So I could delegate, excuse me, by department or by other aspects, but I can delegate different areas of responsibility or scopes, and then I can assign that responsibility to some people. And then over here on the right-hand side, I have these different actions. Each one of these is also individually delegable. So as an example, let's sign out. Let's log back in as our engineering manager. And you'll notice the engineering manager sees the same stuff that I did, just a lot less of it. So he sees only the engineering admin unit, and he can manage just the groups in that particular scope, nothing else. And when he goes to manage users, he's going to see only the users within that particular area. And if I look over here at the OU, you can see they're all from the engineering OU. So anyway, we also have the ability to do self-service group management. So this could be delegated all the way down to every single individual in the organization if you wanted. So when this particular user goes to My AD Groups, he's only going to see the groups that he is the manager of, or one of the managers. You could have multiple if you needed. And as an example, if I sign back out of here, I'm going to sign back in as another user, so Sammy this time. And when Sammy looks at self-service, it goes to My AD Groups. You'll notice he has a different set of groups yet again. These are the groups that Sammy is responsible for. So he could look at, say, the IT support desk, go to membership, and then he could see, here's a list of his members. If he needs to manage the membership, update, add some new people, remove some people, he can do that all himself without opening support cases or, going through a whole series of hoops that enable self-service for any group owner that you want. So that's a really, really beneficial feature. Now I'm going to log in as a help desk user that I'm calling Silly Boy. So my Silly Boy user has the ability to manage some groups as well. So as an example, he is going to start with managing membership of that IT support group. And when I look in here, look at the members, he can say, I need to add somebody to this group. So let's go ahead and add, how about, there must be a Frank or a Francis or something. So let's start with FRA. Oh, we got a whole bunch of matches. So let's look at, how about Gilbert Franklin, I guess. We can select him, update the list. Now what you see here is I've also required approval for this particular group. So in this case, the group owner must approve changes of membership. So the requester, in this case, the Silly Boy user, is going to have to enter his request, whatever the reason is. You can enter it in this box here, say okay. In a moment here, I'll get a little yellow bubble that's going to pop up and tell me that that request has been submitted. There it goes. So I don't know what if you can hear, but what happens is it just sent an email to Sammy. Sammy happens to be the owner of that particular group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to my client machine where Sammy's logged into his email. And here's a brand new email that Sammy just received. It says, hey, you've got an approval request waiting. So when Sammy clicks on that link, it's going to take him to the console. He'll be able to log in and it'll take him directly. I think I just typed that correctly, the password. That'll take him directly to that particular request, that approval item. And there's the details. So now I can see there's the group we're dealing with. There's the requester. There's the requester's comment, whatever he was asking for. And I can see here's the operation that's trying to be performed. So we're trying to add this Gilbert Franklin user. And now as the owner, I can either approve or reject. In either case, that closes out this request. If I approve, then Gilbert gets added to that group right away. And there's nothing more I have to do for that. And by the way, remember in my email, there was another email here previously. So I've just completed this one here for approving that operation, that addition to the group. There was another email from earlier that's asking for a certification review. So that's another feature of the product that allows you to require group owners to periodically review and recertify the groups are still required and the membership is accurate. So for example, if I go back to my pending task, there is a group certification that is in the state of new. In other words, it's still waiting for me to finish that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on certify. And it's going to ask me two questions. So the first question is, do we need to keep this group or should we remove it? So I'm going to say, yeah, it's still good. We need to keep the group. And then the next question is, here's the list of members. What is correct? So do I need to remove some of these or are they still good? So I can say, let's keep everybody. By the way, there's Gilbert. Remember, we just added him a moment ago. He's in the list. And I might say, how about, Carla Pitts doesn't belong anymore. Maybe she was assigned temporarily for this group for some particular project. That project's over. We don't need her in the group anymore. So anyway, as the group owner, he's responsible for certifying that membership. I'll go to the next page, and you have a sample, a certification statement. This is kind of just a placeholder. You can make this say whatever it is you want. And then the owner will have to attest, agree, and submit. And so each group owner would be responsible for certifying their particular group. That takes care of that. And I want to jump back to my other desktop here, where I'm logged in as myself. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to look up another group. We have another feature with group management that relates to temporary escalation. So for example, I've got a security group here that I want to allow a 4-hour window. I'm going to add somebody to the group, but they shouldn't be there permanently. This is a temporary escalation for some particular task. I'm going to go look at membership. By the way, you can also include eligibility on this group. So for now, you see it's empty. That's good. There's not supposed to be anybody in this group. This is a temporary escalation group. So now if I want to add somebody, I'm just going to look up a random name. So let's pick out, David Parks, I guess. If I try to add this person, it should tell me that he's not allowed. There we go. So David Parks is not in the list of eligible members for this restricted group, yada, yada. You get the idea. So he's not allowed in that particular group. Some people are, though, based on whatever conditions you provide. So that's part of the eligibility list. But I'm going to add somebody else who actually is part. I think Jill Simon. There we go. So she should be eligible. Let's go ahead and add her. You notice, by the way, it says end date automatically is 4 hours. So she's going to be removed immediately after the 4 hours is up. And I believe I also required approval for this as well. So again, you can enter whatever your request is, say okay, and that will be submitted. And then I'll jump back over, there that goes. I'm gonna jump back over to my client machine again, and I should see a new email as well. Here it is for this security escalation group. So Sammy will go ahead and log back in and either approve or reject that request as well. Again, you see all the same details, but now I'm just tying it together to where I have not just an approval, but also an eligibility criteria for this membership, as well as a temporary membership. So kind of combining multiple pieces of functionality all into this one task. And now that's completed. And I'm going to jump back again to my own desktop. By the way, that task is completed. Jill's now a member of the group. I'm going to sign back out, sign back in as myself again, so I will see everything. All admin units, all tasks, all everything. And I'm going to look up George one more time, the guy we created a little bit earlier. And if I go look at his account, and I'm going to look at membership. you'll notice a couple of things. So you'll notice that he's now a member of another group that wasn't here before. So when we started, we had a list of groups, and Denver was not one of those groups. But since we created an account with a new location that didn't exist before, it automatically created a new group for that location and added the user to that location. You'll also notice there's another group that's missing. Remember, we added him to the group called Do Not Change members or something like that. He's no longer a member of that group. And that's because that group is not supposed to be changed. I'll show you how that happened in a moment. And in fact, I'm going to do that right now, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to the Guardian console. So Cayosoft Guardian basically records all changes in AD and Azure AD, and it doesn't matter how the change happened, whether it was through a Cayosoft administrative tool or some other administrative tool or native tools or PowerShell, or it doesn't matter. However the change occurred, we'll record those items. In fact, if I refresh here, I'll see a bunch of stuff that we've been working on. So here we go. We've got, George's account. There's changes to the IT support desk group. There was a member that we added. There's that security escalation group change. All this, there's Jill Simon again. So all this stuff that we've been doing that's been recorded. But I also have an alert configured for, in fact, I have a saved query right here for the do not add members group. And I have an alert at the top here that tells me that George Jetson was added. I also have a rule configured in Guardian that says, hey, nobody's supposed to be added to this group. So if you see an addition, immediately remove it, undo that change. So that's just a little bit aggressive, but that's just a configuration option they have available. You can also, if you don't want to, make that change automatic, it can be manual. So as an example, if I were to go, let's just do something, where's George? Let me refresh and get George in the list here because he's brand new. He wasn't there when we started. So if I add George to the domain admin group, for example, that's just another example. I don't have an automatic, I don't have it configured for automatic removal from that group, but I should get another new alert. And there it is. So you see I have an alert for changes to the domain admin group. I have also another change for the same change for the user. So one for the group, one for the user. And on either one of these, by the way, if I open these up, you can see the details. So there George was added to that domain admin group. And I can say, you know what, we don't really want that. Let's roll it back. And so now that's undone. That's effectively what I had done with that other group that I had added George to earlier, except for I had that one configured for automated rollback. Group was super important. I don't want people being added to the group, so just automatically remove anyone if you see that happen. So that's just an option that I had enabled for that particular alert. And anyway, now if I go back to AD and look at George again, I'll find that he's no longer a member of that domain admin group because I just did the rollback from Guardian. So anyway, that is pretty much the entire summary of what I wanted to show today with Cayosoft Administrator and Guardian and managing groups, particularly hybrid groups, and you got a little taste of the other pieces that go along with that as far as user management, exchange management, and that whole thing. So anyway, I'll turn it back over to McKenna at this point.
Thanks, Brian. All right. So today we showed you just a piece of what we do. So I'd like to briefly review our integrated suite of products. So our solutions were specifically designed as a one-stop shop for managing, monitoring, and recovering your Microsoft directories. These three areas dovetail together to create a comprehensive offering to protect and secure complex hybrid AD environments without the hassle of multiple disconnected systems or complicated, outdated legacy tools. From an administration perspective, using granular roles and rules, you can efficiently manage and control your environment, all while increasing efficiency through automation, reducing errors, and eliminating potential vulnerabilities. Next, with change monitoring and threat detection, you can stop attackers before they have a chance to act, instantly or even automatically rolling back malicious changes or mistakes, which Brian showcased a little bit of today. And then finally, recovery. Think of this as an insurance policy for when the worst happens. So when your Active Directory goes down, you need to be able to get it back fast, regardless of the scenario. This enables you to reduce the costly impacts caused by AD outages, including employee downtime, lost sales, and even detrimental effects to your company's reputation. So that's just a quick overview of what we do. While we didn't cover all of these offerings today, we did want to provide you with some additional ways to get more information. You'll see on the screen a few quick links here for the Cayosoft website. Should you have any additional questions, you can visit cayosoft.com/question. If you'd like to schedule a personalized demo or get our free trial, you'll see those links here as well. We also have a QR code on the screen that you can scan with your phone's camera, and it'll take you directly to that demo request page. And of course, for more information about Cayosoft and our solutions, feel free to visit cayosoft.com. Well, that concludes our presentation for today. Thank you everyone for your time and have a great day.